Now, for more about the Nanjing Massacre and the National Memorial Day, we are now joined, as we promised just now, by Mr. Jia Xiudong from China Institute of International Studies. Welcome to our program, Mr. Jia. As we mentioned earlier, that 3 years ago in 2 years ago, in 2014, China's lawmakers approved December the 13th as the National Memorial Day for Nanjing Massacre victims and those who were killed in the Second World War. To remember the victims had become a very social convention indeed. What's the point in making this day official?
Yes, indeed. The Chinese people remember the dark days of World War II, but still there is a lot more to be done. And I believe with the official designation of the Day of Remembrance for the Nanking Massacre victims, it's very important to make several points and clear. First one is, of course, history should not be forgotten. And second is peace is treasured. And we should work to maintain peace and stability in the region, in the Asia Pacific and around the world. But we have to know that there are still political forces in Japan which still try to deny Japan's history of aggression, and so it's very important to let future generations in China, in Japan, and around the world to remember those terrible and miserable and dark days, and so that we can prevent these miserable and dark days from coming back. We know that in Japan, there are very strong political forces existing, which deny Japan's history of aggression. For example, on the fact of the rape of Nanking or Nanking Massacre, they just deny the existence of this historical fact. They even try to prevent other countries, other peoples, from remembering this fact. For example, several years ago when China presented the documents of the Nanking Massacre to the UNESCO organization, tried to include the documents into the UNESCO Memory of the World Register, the Japanese government was trying to prevent that from taking place. And even, after UNESCO organization included the records of Nanking Massacre into its Memory of the World Register, the Japanese government threatened to hold back its payments to UNESCO as a way to try to prevent UNESCO from doing this kind of blackmail, actually, because there is another effort by China and the Republic of Korea, in trying to include the records of the sex slavery into the UNESCO Memory of the World Register. So the Japanese government is not only try to express its displeasure at UNESCO's move to include the records of Nanking Massacre into its Memory of the World Register, and also trying to prevent the inclusion of the records of the sex slavery into the register. So that shows that the Japanese government actually has not come to recognize the historical facts of its aggression, and is trying to prevent the world public from knowing more about it. So it has used various excuses to do that. So what we are doing now is try to make sure that the history will not be forgotten and peace will be treasured.
Then talking about the relations between China and Japan, do you think Japan's attitude toward that part of history, its denial of the historical facts, will still be one of the biggest obstacles in the bilateral relations in the future?
Yes, that remains an obstacle. Especially for Prime Minister Shinzo Abe. He said that, he offered some way of remorse, but he said that he hoped future generations of Japan will not apologize again for what Japan did during World War II. That was kind of erroneous, kind of a line of thinking. We know that in the past, previous prime ministers of Japan or previous administration of Japan did offer some form of remorse or apology to peoples of in Asia, and for the crimes committed by Japan during World War II and during the colonial time. But the question is, various political figures, politicians, including Prime Minister Shinzo Abe, continue to deny its history of aggression. So that make the people of Asia very angry at what the Japanese government has been doing. And so it's very important that people now will remember the history and will prevent those political forces from in Japan from covering up the historical truth. We know, because one thing is very important, because we know that in the past, those political figures or politicians who recognize Japan's history of aggression tend to work for improvement of China-Japan relations. At the same time, whereas those politicians or political forces which deny Japan's history of aggression.
All right, thank you very much, Professor Jiao. We have to leave it there.